All right, you're joining us here on our special broadcast on India Today. We've been getting you every single update that's been coming in on the war that's playing out in the Middle East. And I've got India's #1 war reporter, Gaurav Sawant, who's reported on a number such similar conflicts. Sandeep Unitin to break down for you exactly what the strategy is of both sides. But Gaurav, I'll begin with you on what's played out in the last 24 hours alone in this conflict. What do you make of it?
So this war is escalating, and it's escalating dangerously. It's expanded to newer areas. Initially, these were just military targets that were being acquired. Iran had warned it will target GCC countries, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Not only has it done that, even when the debris went down in some areas during interception, there has been some damage to civilian areas, which is a cause for grave concern. The fact that US aircraft have been down, the fact that this war is escalating in newer directions, hypersonic missiles are now being used. It just goes on to indicate that this war is expanding into very dangerous territory.
And what do you think, Sandeep? You know, in the last 24 hours, there's been an escalation on the part of Iran that many wouldn't have seen coming, essentially. You know, what's played out, the fact that they've targeted so many countries.
Right, absolutely. You know, Akshita, the US and Israeli strategy was very clear. It basically has three pillars. It was or decapitation and regime change. That was the first pillar. The second one is, of course, to strike at Iran's command and control centers, to paralyze its ability to launch missiles, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. And of course, the third is military degradation, to hit at Iran's conventional military capabilities. They've been doing all of this for the last 3 days without much success. Despite the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran has continued to fire missiles. It has expanded the arc of conflict from Cyprus all the way up to Oman. That's over 2,000 kilometers. It's targeted something like 8 countries in 48 hours. No country in the history of warfare has targeted so many countries in one series of drone, missile and ballistic missile strikes. And this is Iran continuing to fight despite losing the leadership. This is a very, very important moment in this war. It possibly points to some kind of miscalculation on the part of the US and Israel, that they thought that leadership change could be brought out from the air. They could carry out decapitation strikes, paralyzing Iran's ability to launch missiles. But Iran, has shown a certain amount of resilience, continuity, and it has expanded the conflict, and they've carried it into the Gulf monarchies, the 6 GCC countries, the Gulf Cooperative Council countries, Cyprus, Israel and Jordan as well, Akshita.
You know, the question that will be asked, therefore, is whether Iran was, in a sense, underestimated. We'll ask that in the course of this coverage, but I want to cut across to big breaking news coming in. One of the most significant images that came in today was of a US fighter jet crashing in Kuwait. And now the first statement has come in from America on this. US has confirmed that the F-15 was down in friendly fire. And it wasn't just one F-15. The statement that's coming from America has confirmed that three US F-15 Eagles flying in support of Operation Epic Fury, which is what America is calling this operation, went down over Kuwait due to an apparent friendly fire incident. The statement says during active combat that included attacks from Iranian aircraft, ballistic missiles and drones, the US Air Force fighter jets were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses. All 6 aircrew ejected safely, have been safely recovered and are in a stable condition. How do you read this, Sandeep? Unbelievable footage, by the way, of that F-15 just collapsing suddenly. And there were so many questions about what led to this. What do you make of the statement that comes in from America that says, look, this happened, friendly fire?
Well, this is unprecedented. I don't think there's ever been a case in the 21st century, at least, of 3 frontline fighter aircraft like this going down due to enemy, friendly fire. Now, I'll just explain what friendly fire means. It is when your own side fires at you, mistaking you to be the enemy. And in this case, it appears to have been the Patriot missile batteries on the ground which fired at these 3 aircraft that were coming in. The US Air Force aircraft, that is the F-15 Strike Eagle. It is the most, it is the best fighter bomber that the US has in its fleet. It is the equivalent of our Su-30 MKI. It carries something like 10 tons of ordnance, missiles, and bombs. It's been used extensively during Operation Epic Fury. Now, how did they not coordinate their flights
And three
with
of them.
the three aircraft going down? It's unprecedented. This kind of a thing, it happened. The last time these kind of incidents happened were during the Second World War or in the pre-digital era, right? But now you have the kind of sophisticated identification frame for IFF systems that are, on aircraft, on the ground, on the missile systems as well, so that you don't, make this mistake. Now, we have to, make that point about the Indian Air Forces had one such very tragic incident during the Balakot airstrikes in 2019, where an IAF missile unit fired mistakenly at an Mi-17, an IAF Mi-17, causing loss of life over here. But to shoot down 3 fighter jets, 3 F-15 Strike Eagles, it is unprecedented in the 21st century.
And the statement, the wording of the statement, Gaurav, I find that so surprising that US says, look, this is a friendly fire incident. There's no talk of an inquiry, there's no talk of what's happened. The pilots, fortunately, are safe, by the way. All 6 ejected safely. They've been recovered as well. But to have 3 jets down, and it takes me back to how Trump constantly spoke about jets down post-Operation Sindoor.
So, look, there are 2 things. A fighter jet like an F-15 has an IFF system, identify friend or foe, so that there isn't a blue on blue. And this is a blue on blue in military parlance, which is your own missiles take down your own aircraft, because your missiles are made in such a way that they'll only take down an enemy aircraft. The identify friend or foe system will prevent own missile taking down own aircraft unless IFF was shut down, and that does not explain why would IFF system be shut down mistakenly perhaps in 1 aircraft. Can it be mistakenly shut down in 3 aircraft? We'll have to wait. Usually there's a military inquiry, a court of inquiry reveals the real cause, and there are consequences to be paid, because this is the taxpayers' money, even if it's the American taxpayers' money that's going down the tube here. And a blue on blue without war, had it happened in enemy fire, you can understand this.
Yeah.
This will, of course, be spun around. And since you mentioned Op Sindoor, it remains to be seen whether these numbers go up from 3 to 13 in Donald Trump's parlance. But we will still have to wait and watch.
A good one there, Gaurav. But as we track those updates, let's get you more news breaks that are coming in. Constant updates that are trickling in right now. What's playing out in the West Asia war? Following Hezbollah's overnight strike on Israel, the Lebanese Prime Minister has made it clear that there will be a crackdown on Hezbollah's military activities, asking them to only work in politics. Lebanon's government says it considers Hezbollah's military activities as illegal acts, says the group should hand over its weapons. But it's highly unlikely, Gaurav, that this will have any impact whatsoever. For Israel, they're already facing these strikes from Iran, from Hezbollah. There have been some reports also of Houthis.
In a lighter vein, would the government in Lebanon have the permission of Hezbollah to say what they're saying? Because Hezbollah is the one that has the weapons and wears the pants, so to say. But clearly, what Hezbollah has done, it had to do, and it said so in a statement, because their supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had been neutralized, so they targeted Israel, the northern part of the country. Israel then issued an order saying 50 villages need to be vacated. And imagine, during the holy month of Ramzan, instead of Sehri, the early morning or the pre-dawn meals before people can start fasting, thousands of people were leaving Beirut and other areas for Israel because they knew Israeli airstrikes would happen. So this is a very dangerous situation. Hezbollah had been warned they can continue their political activities, but not military activities. It remains to be seen whether this is just verbal or will there be action on ground.
We've been talking about this for the last 2 days, about how the theater of war is expanding. More countries are being dragged into this conflict one way or another. We'll just break that down for you. Let's put out on our screens right now what's happened in the last 24 hours as far as the theater of war is concerned. We've seen Iran now firing strikes at almost every US asset that they can reach out to. And Sandeep, as we'll break that down, we'll put out those, and there you have it. All of the conflict zones right now, what's playing out. A lot of this has actually expanded in the last 24 hours alone. A lot of these countries have gotten involved in the last 24 hours alone.
Absolutely, and this is all because Iran has expanded the zone of conflict, over the last 24 hours. And if the US and Israel thought that they could confine the fighting to Iran and degrade their ability to launch ballistic missiles. Iran has clearly disproved them by expanding that range of conflict by targeting countries as far as Cyprus right there to the west and Oman to the east. So that's a massive arc of countries that they have targeted. They primarily targeted the US military bases, as they are saying, that because they host US military bases, all of the countries, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman and the UAE, they all host US military bases, and that's why Iran says that they're targeting them. But there's another aspect to that as well, and that is the targeting of commercial establishments in the GCC countries, in the Arab monarchies, high visibility symbols of economic progress, like the Jebel,
Dubai.
the Bar Dubai, in Dubai they've targeted the Palm Jumeirah, they've targeted
Burj
the
Al Khalifa.
Burj Al Khalifa, those hotels, high visibility thing, and the airport, one of the busiest
but
airports
were those
in the world.
targets, or was that debris?
So debris
Because
is what
of
we have been told,
interceptions.
that they essentially targeted military installations, the Patriot missile defense shield. So all these countries, they invested very heavily in American missile defense shields because America had taken the responsibility to look after them. If you'd recall, during the 12-day war, when Israel struck Qatar, the Al Udeid air base, that's the time these countries started panicking, saying America is not protecting us. And that's why Saudi Arabia had that agreement with Pakistan. Not that it's worth the paper it's written on, but be that as it may, UAE now must be thinking that have they invested enough, or do they need to invest more in the Patriot or THAAD or other such systems? Perhaps India's Akash Tir always does much better, as we've seen during Operation Sindoor. Our surface-to-air missile defense shield, the Sudarshan Chakra, the S-400. Not that I'm, marketing any of those weapons, but we're just saying that in operations, they've done extremely well. It's the Strait of Hormuz being targeted. Even though Iran says it's not an official blockade, it's just a temporary restriction on movement of some ships. But most ships are dropping anchor. They refuse to go because insurance rates have gone through the roof, and that's a cause for grave concern.
Right.